In this video, I'm going to do a quick breakdown of how to convert an equation into code. I'm starting off with this equation that I came up with off the top of my head. 34 plus 22 divided by 33 times 45 minus 18 times 199. And I double check this using Symbolab so that I know the result I'm looking for in the end. Negative 3,518. So in order to do this, I'm going to follow our mathematical order of operations, which is PEMDAS. PEMDAS stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. This is the order that you follow performing your math operations to make sure you get the right results. If you perform these out of order, you're going to get a different answer. So starting off, we see here the top priority is parentheses and exponents. If you take a look at our equation, we don't have any of these. So we're going to move straight to our multiplication division. And now multiplication division has the same level of priority. So now we move from left to right. So when we take a look at our code, we're going to take a look at all of our symbols. We see a plus, a divide, a multiplication, a minus, and another multiplication symbol. Here we see plus is first, but it has a lower level of priority than multiplication division. So then we move over and we find division is next. Now, because division and multiplication have the same level of priority, it just matters which one comes first. So we'll go ahead and we're going to perform this math operation first. I'm going to perform each of these operations between two numbers. To start off, to help me organize things, I want to take a look at how many different math operations I'm going to be performing. So I have a plus, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm actually going to be performing 5 math operations. This isn't that difficult. You'll see as we break it down here. So I'm going to start off just declaring these. 1, double 2, double final. All right. So now I have one for each set of operations I'll perform, and I'll break it down for you. So we know my first operation, thanks to PEMDAS, is between 22 and 33. I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to put that equation in. 22 divided by 33. And I like to double check my numbers as I'm working on them to make sure everything is working properly. Well, I know that 22 divided by 33 should not be 0. In fact, if we were to take a look at Symbolab, this is why you want to double check these things. We can see on these steps that it's actually 22 divided by 33 will end up being about 2/3. So it should be a decimal point. But if we remember, when we do an integer divided by an integer, the computer automatically removes that decimal if we don't tell it explicitly there's a double. So we want to make sure to either cast or put a decimal point. I'm just going to put a dot zero after this. So now when I run my code, I see 0.66 all the way down. Excellent. That's our first step. So now that I have this in order and I know I'm storing the result of 22 divided by 33 inside of my variable 1, I'm actually going to replace 22 divided by 33 in our example here with the word 1 to remind myself that's where our result is. And this is going to help us out immensely as we keep going. We go back to our order of operations. We find the next our next multiplication is now between 1, that variable 1, and then 45. So now I'm going to come down to 2, and I'm going to call that 1 and then 45. Now, if I go ahead, double check this, run it, I see 30. Perfect, that's what we were looking for. We know everything's working right now. So I'm going to quickly go through the next steps, but as you're doing this, you'll want to double check each step because it's really easy to accidentally type something wrong, or as you saw, we didn't put a decimal point in the right place, and your math starts to go wild. So just keep this in mind and keep double checking your numbers as you go. So here we've gotten 2 down. It was between 1 and 45, so I'm going to replace this with our variable name 2. Then we have our multiplication back here. It's between 18 and 99. I'm just straight out going to copy and paste this in and replace 18 times 199 with 3. And now I'm going to come down to 4. Now that we're all done with our multiplication and division, we only have plus and minus left. We're going to go from left to right on these. So between 34 and 2 for our fourth operation, Go ahead and replace that with 4. And now we only have one operation left. This is between our variable 4 and our variable 3. So I'm going to go ahead and copy for our final, put equal, paste. And now let's display our final result. Remember, we were looking for negative 3,518. Let's go ahead and run our code. Negative 3,518. This was a quick example of how to break down an equation and turn it into code. If you have methods for addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division, you can just pass these in as arguments instead of doing the math operations here. Following this, you'll see a full breakdown of how I did all the math on this and how you can use it with methods and other math operations. In this video, I'm going to break down how we can take this equation and break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks using PEDMAS, and then we can convert that into code and even use our methods in order to get the accurate result. So starting out here, we notice that I have an equation. This equation was one I just came up with off the top of my head, but if you if you break down the code properly, you should be able to get the result no matter what. And so here we see it's 34 plus 22 divided by 33 times 45 minus 18 times 199. We have a lot of different things going on here, but we'll take it step by step. In order to get the result that we want, which I've already done the calculation here using a tool that I'll show off in a little bit, the result is going to be negative 3,518. In order to achieve that, we need to make sure to follow PEDMAS, PEDMAS. This stands for parentheses, exponents, divide, multiply, add, and subtract. This is the order of operations, is the order in which we perform these mathematical operations in order to get the proper result. We'll go through these two. So starting off, let's go ahead and clean this up. We want to make sure and follow this PEDMAS, this order of operations, and start by breaking down each equation into a 2-number math operation. So let's go ahead and start with the first operation. I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. If we see 34 plus 22, then 22 divided by 33. So this is actually the first math operation we're going to perform because it performs a division. Now, division and multiplication actually have the same level of priority, meaning that if this multiplication had come first, then we would have performed that first. It's just because division came before multiplication left to right that we're performing it first. So we're going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to wrap this in parentheses to demonstrate this is the only part I'm focusing on. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this here. It's 22 divided by 33. And let's find our result. I'm going to bust out the calculator. You may even see I have some math already going here. And I'm going to do 22 divided by 33. We see that it gets a result of 0.66. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put that down here. 0.66. Fantastic. That's our first result. And I'm going to put first here. All right. So now we're going to come down. I'm going to take this equation. And now I'm going to place our result in here. That 22 divided by 33 ends up being 0.66. That's perfect. So if we take a look at our next step here, again, coming left to right, we notice now with that with our new result, we have 0.66 times 45. So again, I'm going to wrap this in parentheses because that's what we're focusing on. And our second operation is going to be 0.66 times 45 equals, and we're going to bust out the calculator, 0.66 times 40. 0.66 times 45. 0.66 times 45. Here we go, 29.7. So we're going to put 29.7. You might actually find that it returns a value of 30. We're going to go with 30, not just because it's a rounder number, but because I'll show you the tool I use. There's actually more mathematics going on behind it. So we're going to go with 30. And so now we're going to come down here, and now it's going to be 34 plus. Remember, this all resolves to 30. So I'm going to do 30 minus 18 times 199. Do you see the next part that we are going to perform our math operations on? Remember PEDMAS, this divide and multiply. So if we go from left to right here, we now find another multiplication. So we're actually going to perform math between 18 and 199. Always these two number multiplications are these two number operations. So here we're doing 18 times 199, and that returns a result of 18 times 199, 3582. 3582. All right. So now we have our 3582, and we performed it on this math right here. So if we come down to our 34 plus 30 minus 1 minus 3582. All right, so our fourth operation. And by now you might be looking at this and thinking, oh wow, this is already pretty easy. It's broken down quite a bit. I'll show you why we stick with the two number math operations for now. So we have our 34 plus 30 because we have taken care of all of our division and multiplication. So we are now going in order here. We run into our addition, 34 plus 30. If we do this, we know it equals 64. And just to show off, just to make sure, always feel free to double check. 34 plus 30 plus 34. There we go, 64. All right, and so now we know it's 64 minus 3582. This will be our final result. So 64 minus 3582 equals 64 minus 3582. And we receive a result of negative 3,518, which is the result we expected up here. Negative 3,518. And to show you this tool I was using this amazing website called Symbolab, SYMBOLAB, SYMBOLAB.com. Now, it is a wonderful calculator, but what I suggest you do is you use it to practice your math, because it allowed me to just put in this equation that, again, I made up off the top of my head, and it did all the math for me, but I used it to double check my results as I went. We see here, it breaks it down step by step, and it follows PEMDAS. Excuse me, I think I mispronounced it earlier. And so we have, you see here that starts off with the 22 divided by 33, and you actually notice that it multiplies it by 45, so it does this whole step in one. Now, there's a lot more math. All right, thank you. There's a lot more math going on here, because 22 over 33, or 22 divided by 33, is actually 2/3, and 2/3 of 45 results in 30. And to get that, if you were to do 2/3, if you were to divide 45 into thirds, you would have 1/3 is 15. So multiply that times 2, you would get 30. So feel free to use Symbolab to refresh your math. Just understand what's going on, so that way you know as you perform your math and actually convert it into code that it's performing properly. So then we got that 30, then it came down here, it did 34 plus 30 minus 18 times 199. It did the 18 times 199 first, got us that 3582. If you recall, that's our result. That's perfect. And then it did that same fourth step, 34 plus 30, and it went ahead and it would have gotten us 64. 64 minus 3582 gets us our result of negative 3,518. So this was just how I double checked the math. Now we're going to go ahead and convert it into code, because I want you to remember this website is all built off of code. Someone else did this. You could do the same thing. Computers are excellent at math here, so keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and turn this into code first. So our first step is just going to be turning into using math operators. So we're going to start off again at the top here. And we already kind of know the steps, so I'll go a little quicker, but I'll show you how we turn it into code. So first things first, I'm going to start with a double, and I'm going to call this our first step. And I'm doing double because I know I have division in my math here. So anytime I have division, it's probably going to have a decimal someplace. So I'm going to throw it in. I'm going to start us as a double right off the bat. So I have my double first, and I'm going to do this part of the equation again, this 22 times 33. 22 divided by 33. And now I want to double check my numbers as I'm going to make sure I'm getting the proper result. So I'm going to come here. I'm just going to do a right line and display my result of first. This is weird. My result is actually 0. Can you see why? So even though I did double, I declared this as a double. If we were to hover over my numbers, you might actually see it here. It says int 32, or even just straight out says int. That's because it's still looking at these as whole numbers, integers. And if we recall, if we do division with two integers, two whole numbers, it doesn't even ask. It just automatically does not give us a decimal. So I need to make sure I do something that makes this an implicit cast to a double. And the two ways we can do that are we can cast one of the numbers to double, and that involves just doing parentheses and then the type we're casting to. Here it's double. Or the route I like to take, which is also really short and easy, is I just add a 0.0 to the end of this. It means the same exact thing. And now if we take a look and we do our math, we get that 0.66 that we had been expecting. Perfect. So we know this is working out. So with this, we already know to keep an eye out for that casting. So that's our first step. And just to keep in mind, this all resolves down to first. That result is being saved in first, and we'll keep that in mind. So now we're going to take this equation. We know this is supposed to resolve down to 0.66, but because we're writing this out and we're now turning it into variable names, I want to show a great technique to use in case you're getting started and you don't want to forget what variable is holding what. We're going to go ahead and we will make sure to do this using our variable names too. So now it's going to be first times 45 minus 18 times 199, right? So that's good. So now, again, we have our multiplication here. And so now our next step is going to be multiply first times 45. So we're going to come down here, we're going to do double second equals first. Yes, we are quite literally using this variable because this took care of this math right here. And so now we're transposing that answer into our next variable. So first times 45. Let's check the result here. So we're going to do second, run our code. We see it's 30. That's exactly what we wanted here. So far so good. We know our math's adding up. I'm going to take both of these. And once you get comfortable, you don't need to break it down quite like this, but it's great when you're first getting practice to know the order of operations. So we know this 66 times 45 resolves to 30. So I'm actually going to take this, and we know that 30 was stored in second, so I'm going to do second here. So this is our equation using our variable names. So now we have our 34 plus our second variable, which is holding 30. And then we do minus 18 times 199. If we recall, this is the next part, thanks to PEMDAS. Is it PEMDAS? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about by now. So we do our multiplication next. It's 18 times 199. So we're going to do double third equals 18 times 199. Display the result here. Run our code. 3582. 3582. Things are adding up. That's fantastic. And I'm actually going to put 3582 here just so I can make sure I remember the results as I go down. Again, you won't be doing this in the future once you get comfortable writing all this out, but it's great when you're first starting to practice. So far, so good. Let's go ahead and take this. All right, so we know this results into 3582, and this actually results into our third variable. Things are looking really clean now, aren't they? So now we're going to do our fourth operation equals, now we've gotten rid of all the division and multiplication, so we're just going to do the plus. The first plus is going to be 34 plus second. See, here we go. Go ahead. My apologies. we will go ahead and make sure this is all wrapped properly so you can see it. All right. Now we're doing 34 times our second variable here, or 34 plus our second variable, my apologies. So 34 plus second. Let's go ahead and display the result. And we know what it should be. I'm actually even going to write that down here, because if it works out properly, we see we have 64. That's perfect. So far, so good. Now we're going to take our math here. This is now these two right here now equal our fourth variable. And this was 64. And again, if we wanted to double check everything does not hurt, we see this equation is breaking down exactly the same. So now we're just going after our final result. Final equals fourth minus third. And now if we go ahead and display our final result, we know we should be expecting negative 3518. Go ahead and run our code again. Negative 3518, that's absolutely fantastic. So we've gone ahead and we've used variables and math operations to do all the math for us. We just had to put it in the correct order here. And once we've broken it down, we've gotten that exact result. That's wonderful. It means everything's working properly. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing with methods. And so what this means is if we take a look here, I have created methods for all of our basic math operations, addition, subtraction, which is minus, divide, and multiply. If we take a look here, I've made sure their return type is double, even though the division is most likely to be the double. I try to play it safe and make sure they're all double so I don't have to worry about it. It comes down to the application you're building, but right here, this will work for us. So now you see I pass in two parameters, a double number 1 and a double number 2. I do it the same for all of them. And now, just to give a quick reminder, if I were to say do add and I did 50 or 60 and 30 or 60 and 44, excuse me, what's happening here is it's actually going to pass in, it's going to associate num1 with the 60, it's going to associate 44 with num2, so it's going to be 60 plus 44, and then it's going to return a result, and that means it is going to be 104, which means if I were to just say declare a variable called sum, that means it would perform all this math and it would return a value of 104, and sum would equal 104. So that's what's happening here. So I just did all these quick little methods here. And now we're going to come back up and we're going to do the same exact thing we did here, but this time with methods. And you'll find it's really quite simple. So we keep getting faster and faster at this. So we have our 22 and 33. So I'm going to do double method first equals, we know our two numbers are 22 and 33 and we're dividing. So I'm going to call divide 22, 33, pass in my two values. Let's display m first, run, let's check. 0.66, we already know that's correct. All right. And so now we're going to come down to our next one here. Same thing, 0.66. And again, we know 34 plus, and it's going to actually, that 0.66 is our m first, times 45 minus 18 times 199, double second. So m first times 45, m second. And the m stands for method. This is just a variable name I'm throwing out there. So this time it's multiply, so we're going to do multiply m first, straight out passing that result from here over to here. And then our next number is 45. Let's print this out m second. We know that it should print out 30 because of our previous math. So far, so good. We got 30. Take all this, paste it down here. We know this is 30. 30. And now this is our next math we're going to be doing. Remember, this is being stored in our second variable, so m second. This is going to be our next operation, our third one. So we're going to do double m third equals, and this is another multiplication, so we do multiply. We're going to do 18, 199. Oop. Display this result. Run it. 3582, 3582. So far, so good. This was our third result. So now we know this is m third. 3582. All right, so far so good. Now now that we've gotten rid of multiplication division, we're going to do it here. We're going to our addition. Same process, double method fourth equals addition 34, and then that m second. This is why we want to keep track of those variable names. Display this m fourth. If this works out properly, it should display 64. We have our 64. Fantastic. And our final step is to get the final answer. So now this should be 64. And we know this result is stored in m fourth, right? So it's m fourth minus m third, double m final equals subtraction, or minus, sorry. Mine was called minus. Call it what you want. But we have our minus symbol, so minus m fourth, m third. Notice that we're not even passing in any other numbers. The computer's keeping track of all of our results. So now if we go ahead and display our m final, you see that we have negative 3,518, which is the same result we got the first time. And we did all of this by breaking our equation down into small bite-sized chunks using PEMDAS, and then using our methods in order to perform the mathematics and passing those results into other methods. So go ahead. This is related to your assignment. Go ahead, get practice with all the math you want. Remember, it's about us being able to break down equations and let the computer do the math for us. That's how we conquer math with computers. Enjoy.